Okay. What's up? You said you had questions about America or something.
Yes, I waited because it's late, but I, know you're in the gym. Haha.
Yeah.
I waited. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, basically I have a couple at least, since last time we spoke about, the great United States of America. So one thing is a very very and short answer would do. But what's up with Trump? I know that he was. The thing is about him having documents that he was not supposed to withheld since he was no longer like a president and stuff. And but other arguments that can help him out other than Hillary emails.
On the federal charges, meaning the charges coming from our federal government, the government of the entire United States, Trump is absolutely fucked, and there is nothing that is getting out of that. The only question is, what is the sentencing going to look like? Unless the FBI or the DOJ is completely lying about all the evidence they have. So short of that, he's going to be buried on those charges, and no amount of Hillary's emails are going to help him on that.
Well, I hope so, yeah. I just saw the only arguments from people. I saw a little bit of your conversation with people, and all the arguments were just, but what about Hillary?
Yeah.
Nothing more than that. So it seems to me like nothing better than that have been produced to explain this away, because it seems like
people are just trying to play basically that there's a double standard, essentially, is what people are trying to say. And that doesn't, even if there is a double standard, it doesn't really help Trump at all. So
yeah, also not exactly comparable, but that's another thing.
Not even close to comparable. Yeah.
Yeah, but whatever. That's basically just, I wanted to know, maybe some decent, I guess, argument to kind of help the guy out. But well, fuck him. It's not like I'm sad about that, obviously.
Sure. Although there is going to be a lot of interesting questions coming up, because Trump winning the election is not impossible. Anybody that says that is crazy. He can still win the Republican nomination, and he could still win the general. It's possible. So we would be in a very interesting scenario to where we could theoretically have a president in jail or getting convicted of a crime federally while also being president, which presents a whole bunch of incredibly interesting questions about how our government works and what would happen and everything, right? The Department of Justice is, we have different branches for our government, and the Department of Justice exists underneath the President of the United States. So people don't really know what would happen. This doesn't really happen, so nobody really asks, right? There's not a thing built in for how to deal with what happens when the President's Department of Justice is trying to investigate and convict him of a crime. Nobody has any idea how that would look,
Yeah, I see. But is there no law that prohibits him to to be a president if he has convictions or shit like that?
I could be wrong, but I think the only conviction that prevents you from running for president, I believe the only one is if you do espionage act. If you're convicted of espionage, I think. But other than that, you can be rapist, murderer, whatever you want. Yeah.
Well, interesting. But I might be under wrong impression, but Trump fans, they just seem like straight up cultists. So maybe him being prosecuted will motivate them to vote for him, because there will be oh, you see, the establishment, they got him, so they'll be even more motivated to
so the Trump fans are all anti-establishment, really. So that means that any move by the establishment to attack him is always going to be seen as reinforcing the fact that he was right about everything.
Proves they're already existing conspiracy shit. Well, that was one question, and I told you a thing, but Dylan recently posted interview, part of the interview, part one of the interview we did with Right Sector Commander, one of the people who serves in 68 Mechanized Brigade in Ukraine near Bakhmut.
Okay.
So it have been quite a spicy interview. So maybe some people in your DGG guys watched it. I got a lot of engagement on Twitter when I posted about it, and some explanation why we decided to do it. And it was such a moment. It basically was my idea. I suggested it to Dylan, and I was do you want to do it? And he was a bit apprehensive about it, because he was like, I don't know, like those guys are like very controversial, to put it mildly, and also he might have been a bit uncomfortable, I guess, but then we decided to do it, but we have to like approach it responsibly, basically to highlight the fact that this is hardly represents the the average Ukrainian soldier or average Ukrainian opinion, to actually like be honest about the fact that those people are like about as far right as it usually gets. You rarely would you get more far right than right sector in Ukraine. So people talk about Azov because it's part of Russian propaganda, obviously, right? But there's like nowhere near Azov is anywhere near right sector, like in regards of like ideologically driven. So
yeah, it's the difficult part is people tend to have a really hard time accepting like anything negative about a particular thing. Like things tend to be all good or all bad. So when you're doing reporting, it's very difficult.
Very black and white.
Yeah, it's very difficult not to cover something in an honest way, because if you present any bad or anything that could be bad, then people are like, oh, well, look, see, it's all bad. So when it comes to covering like far right aspects of Ukraine, my guess is there probably is like some amount of like far right sentiment in Ukraine. There might even be some anti-Semitism in some Ukrainian military forces. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, just because military people tend to lean more right than anything else. But the problem is that like if you report on that or if you cover that at all, then people, go straight to like, oh, well, look, they're all Nazis or it's all horrible. Zelensky's probably a Nazi. And then it gets very, very, very hard to have like I hate the word nuance, but it gets hard to have like a non-binary view of, all of Ukraine, basically.
This was basically our worry, to even cover it.
Yeah.
But
and you have to be really careful because like you can't pretend it's not there and like throw all softballs, but you don't want to like dig in on the far right aspect, because then it looks really bad. And then it's like, it's a difficult thing to manage. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's very like kind of hard to, but then we kind of like discussed it and basically came to the conclusion that they will be brought up anyway. So this narrative like about like Ukrainian being Nazis, Nazi, whatever the fuck, Azov, like Bandera, that all that shit is brought up regardless. Like either we will talk about them or not, I will hear about it if I live long enough, considering things, I will hear about when I'm fucking old.
Sure.
Like I will hear about Azov, right sector. So basically it's new Bandera, I call it, like the Bandera of the new age, basically at this point. So this is like part of the mythos, so to speak now. So there's like nothing you can do about it. But at the same time, rather than people just talk about them nonstop, we would probably be kind of interesting to see what they actually have to say, themselves. Because there's no content like that, as Dylan said, like in English whatsoever. So literally none. So that would be like, at least interesting in that regard. And also if we're honest about it and we just, show as it is, then maybe, people will make their own conclusions. And this was like kind of like our motto. So we arrived at the place. It's quite close to Russian, border where they were at the time. And we decided to, talk with the commander basically of that particular battalion. And I had like never met him before. So, he was and is by far like one of the most intimidating people I have ever met.
Okay.
Genuinely, yeah, because not just because like he's of anything like in particular like ideology wise, he's just incredibly like, I don't even know how to even explain it. Like he's such a like strong like presence.
Yeah, some people are very aggressive. Yeah, or not even aggressive, but just they carry a lot of like weight. They fill a room with their presence and everything. Yeah. Yes,
not only that, you look at him and he killed a bunch of people.
Okay. Yeah.
You can kind of, it's not like, I'm not making like light of it. He's fighting in Bakhmut and mostly kills Wagner people. So good luck, my guy, not a single battalion is anywhere near Wagner when it comes to actual brutality, like slaughter and actual fucking neo-Nazism, So I'm not bad about that, obviously, right? The defenders of my country and people who stand between me and that shit, I will do anything I can for them regardless,
Sure.
But it's just, he's like very scary dude. Let's put it like that. So he comes to me and he like asks me, And also we came there like basically like a fucking gay duo, you know. So Dylan and like me, and I was like green hair, you know, rainbow tattoo, stomach exposed. Like I was not like I don't know, like slutty dressed, but pretty like, you know, exposed, and like funky pants and everything. And it's just and we're like literally the gay duo, like amongst very far right and quite you know heavily involved in the fighting people, which they treated us just fine. So I didn't feel like threatened or scared at any point. I was just the only thing I was afraid of is that he will get mad and didn't want to do the interview.
Sure.
So, you know, we'll cut it off basically. So I was like, he asked me like, so what do you like wanna talk about? And I was like, well, this and that. Dylan was like very adamant about asking them about LGBT, about things like that. I was, you know, told him that Yaroslav is his name, and he was like, well, you know, like, girly, we're not like exactly the best people to talk about this subject. And I was like, yeah, no, that's why we're here, you know. And he was like, okay, like, but how honest can I be? And I was like, well, we would prefer if you would be like 100% honest. And he was like, well, I'll give you 99, okay?
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that's good enough, you know? And so basically, I tried to explain to him like we are not going to, you know, turn it into some sort of like narrative, like, you know, look at them like it's your typical, you know, Ukrainian soldier. So we're not going to do it. And he himself said like we are like, you know, not typical people. We are like completely like very much like more radical and more like ideologically driven than most soldiers who are fighting like, you know, in the army. And I was like, yeah, no, that's, you know, why we're interested. So we ended up doing this like interview in like there was no light in the area, no electricity, so we had like this you know, flashlights, like, you know, highlighting him like in a dramatic
like
movie.
It's an ISIS or something.
So basically we're like set up across him, and as we spoke, he would get like progressively madder.
Okay.
Like more angry. So I started like, you know, like make jokes and try to lighten up the mood. Mostly he would get angry because how to explain it without triggering people? I guess I would just honest about it. It's just unfathomable to quite a lot of like Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian people in general. Like, why the fuck half of the interview is about LGBT?
Sure,
you know?
yeah.
So so he basically made a very good argument about that. He was like why the fuck should we like, you know, talk about those topics? Like who paints like their house walls when the house is on fire?
Yeah.
You know, deal with like things that are more crucial now than that. So there was like a lot of interesting things about that interview. I'd say he represented you know, far right people pretty well. So what he said was pretty characteristic of most people who I know, like who are like him.
Sure.
So second part of the interview is the most interesting part because he talks about Wagner, talks about how they are composed, how they are created, and he talks about like Bakhmut and the Battle of Bakhmut and the strategies. It's much more interesting than, you know, LGBT stuff, to be quite honest. But he was like, basically the interview ended up being received pretty well by most people. Most people were surprised that he was far less awful than they expected.
Sure.
Which is, I guess, is like a compliment. I don't know what they expected exactly, but this was to me like interesting experience, and to Dylan as well. And I think most people told that he's like a Midwestern, like conservative American, basically, like slightly racist grandpa, you know.
Sure.
In America, yeah, that's what people, you know, told me, like in comments and everywhere. Like he's like, you know, like basically like a Republican person, something like that. Many even made comments that far right people in the United States are way wackier than him. So this was not bad, I think. Also, by the way, just so people, you know, have a little laugh, I sent him the comments and I told him what people call him, like racist American grandpa, like Midwestern, you know, Republican. People say Republican with IQ, which was funny. He liked that one. But I also told him that some people call him like average MAGA supporter, like Make America Great Again, right? And he was like, not that, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
So he basically objected to Trump, but not to the rest of it. Trump was objectionable. But his explanation was like, first of all, the guy is literally a scammer, oligarch. And second of all, he's like has a cult of personality, which is disgusting, and he doesn't support that. You know, Well, anyhow, it was pretty interesting, but most people were pretty okay with all of that and were interested and said that they don't support like his views, but they, it was interesting to hear. But there were, of course, leftists,
Yeah.
who came out of the woods, with the general song and dance of accusing me of being a Nazi or a Nazi supporter, which is boring. Not gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
But
I saw that on your Twitter feed,
but interestingly enough, like a lot of people brought up this platform and shit.
Yeah. That's a
I'm
big one that
very
we talk about in the United States, yeah.
Yeah, and can you please like what on earth? Like first, I just don't understand. Like he's not a media person. He doesn't have any media platform. He's not a content creator. He's not a politician. He wore a mask. Like for fuck's sake, like who are we like platforming exactly? It's just like an interview.
So the way that it works is the far left people in the United States believe that if you don't have like basically you have to have a very hardline position when it comes to things like fascism, right? They define a lot of their political movement around their opposition to fascism. And if you're not like 100% ideologically opposed to it, then you are 100% ideologically aligned with it. So I don't know if you've heard them, I don't know if you've heard them say the thing that's like, if there's one Nazi at a table sitting with 11 people, there are 12 Nazis at a table or 13 Nazis at a table.
That's retarded.
Yeah. But the issue is that, the issue is that when it comes to like platforming, what a lot of left-leaning people will say is that like if you platform somebody with extremist views, then you're essentially letting that person spread those extremist views, and then you're essentially like creating more fascists, essentially, is kind of like how people view it. Yeah.
Well, first of all, nobody made an argument why he's a fucking fascist.
Well, fascist
just
means
him.
Fascist is like a colloquial. Nobody really knows what fascism is in the United States. Fascist is just like a colloquial term for like far right, kind of, or like anti-LGBT, or that's just kind of like what.
Oh, that's my actual next questions I would like to ask. But first of all, like nobody made like any points. They didn't even watch the video. I presume they're just like, oh, right sector, that's it, fascist. Why do you talking with this guy? But it's just first of all that, and second of all, like it's an interview. Like it's journalism, it's
yeah, but they would say it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. They would say that there are certain people that just should never be interviewed.
But why? Like those views are like
because when you talk to those people, it spreads the views more. That is the extent of the argument. Yeah.
But most of the world shares his opinions on gay people.
Yeah, but it's just because they're all being platformed.
Well, that's so weird. And this like LGBT thing, I basically like asked people, basically like like fascism, like authoritarianism, ultranationalism, I don't know, like characterized by like a dictatorial leader, autocracy, I don't know, like extreme militarism, like I don't know, suppression of opposition, generally like forcible, with like imprisonment and killing and stuff like that. What else? Like subordination of individual interests, right, to the like for the perceived good, of the whatever, like of the country, of the nation. Like those are like things that make fascism, not like. And he's nothing like that. He's very anti-authoritarian. He's very pro-democracy, pro-elections. That's very important to him. This is one of the most important things he says we need to protect from Russia in Ukraine, And so it's just first of all that, and second of all, it's just I asked, like I was joking. I made jokes like, so what being anti-gay marriage like and if feeling gays are yucky is like Nazis, like fascism. I was joking, and they were like, unironically, yes.
Yeah, because they'll point to the fact that like Nazis like had LGBT people in concentration camps and say that like that's a big part of fascism.
True, it's part of it, obviously, right? Like a disgust towards like any divergency from what is considered social norm. So this is a very big part of like fascist and Nazi shit, obviously, right? So and also like strict gender roles, adherence to traditionalism is very big part, but it's like not the biggest part. And also it's not like the only part. Just being homophobic doesn't make you a fucking fascist. Like, what's
Americans don't really have like
good.
Americans don't have good definitions of fascism, or arguably even leftism. I don't even know like how much the world even believes in like socialism anymore or whatever. Like for instance, like in the United States, we'll say that like a lot of Scandinavian countries are socialist, even though not really. But everybody kind of uses these definitions to just mean whatever. So it's hard to, But I mean, that's just how it works, right? Colloquial words change, evolve over time, and people just say whatever. Yeah.
And I asked that person, by the way, who was, by the way, they them with like a furry picture, obviously, right? And they're communists. Yeah, but I asked them like what do you think? Like then, if anyone who's like mildly homophobic is a Nazi, then literally most people in the world are Nazis. Do you understand that? So like China, Russia, with humongous populations, right? So India, Middle East, Africa, a lot of countries in Africa, right? So like most like people.
Well, whoa. That doesn't work because black and brown people can't be fascist. So they haven't escaped for that one. Minorities can't be fascist. That's only white people.
Yeah. Oh, so that's why the person enrolled me an email. Now I get it.
Maybe. Triggers. Yeah, white. Yeah.
Yeah, he said like, how can you like be like, you're not even like can be a Nazi, because why you support Nazis if you're like Slavic people are not white? Which basically I'm like all over the place about that. You know, first of all, like why the fuck are we not white? And second of all, like it basically makes a point that if you're like, you can only be Nazi if you're white, which you know.
Sure. And even like what white is kind of like depends. Yeah. Just. Yeah.
So like Japan like was not fascist then in World War II? Like,
I don't think they like Asians very much, so that's why they made BIPOC is to kick Asians out. So I think like Asians and white people, I think they're generally okay shitting on, but it just depends. Yeah, I don't know. The left-leaning people in the United States are kind of a mess, but they're a very small percentage of the population. They're just a really big percentage of what goes on Twitter.
Yeah, but that's what I also wanted to ask you. Is it a representative, like average, like leftist, progressive person, not like internet people, but just average person? Do they think like just being homophobic is, fascist?
No, that's like very online stuff, but they're very big online. Yeah, but like the average like Democrat in the United States is not going to be like a progressive. That's just very online. But they're very loud online.
Don't get me like wrong. Obviously, I would prefer like us to be more like the West when it comes to LGBT, obviously, right? So yeah, but it's just that how to say it, for fuck's sake, like even in Eastern Europe, it's like pretty common, you know. So most people like will not go to like religious arguments, so like calling them like sinners or like saying they were like bring like hell or shit like that, and most people don't care here because of the atheism and less religious and shit like that. But they will be like just disgust, which is not exactly like nicer or better, and it is getting way better, and it has been in recent years, which I'm super hyped about, but it's just like I was like very concerned.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that. Also, in my humble opinion, them not even allowing that person like Yaroslav to speak. He was not like screeching like Jews and shit like that. He was pretty reasonable overall. So just not allowing him even to speak, even to have a voice. Just suppress. We want them to be silent or dead. Is basically what they said.
Yeah,
like
basically,
legit said that.
I mean, that's how it goes. People get mad at me for even talking to far-right people, so that's pretty normal, Yeah,
and I was like, dude, that's like closer to fascism than Yaroslav can fucking dream of,
Well, the real issue with things like fascism is that like there's like nobody likes fascism because of the word, but there's probably a lot of aspects of fascism that people would like if you present those aspects just on their own.
Yeah,
like there are some aspects
that's for sure.
There are some aspects of far left like thought that would like fit very well like in a fascist regime, like the ability to like control people like absent of political systems.
Yeah, that's why we call them fascists.
Sure, yeah. But then also like in the United, but the problem with that in the United States is that like we complain about progressives a lot because they're who are like very big online, but like the Republican Party, the majority of them that follow Trump at least would probably be completely okay with most of like the United States being like a fascist system, and that's real life. That's not just Twitter. Those are the people that actually go out and vote. So that's why it's so much more difficult dealing with the Republican Party here in the United States, because all of the people that like wear MAGA hats that follow Trump are essentially fascists. They just don't know what it means.
I heard you say it, but I'm like kind of debate time. Let's put it like that. So do you think like that's funny to say, but whatever. Do you think like why do you think like it's okay to like Trump? Why would he call him like fascist exactly?
In my opinion, the biggest marker for a fascist is somebody that's willing to disregard rule of law to further their own power. And Trump was huge on undermining democratic norms and rule of law to further his own power. He wasn't technically a fascist because he couldn't be, because the United States system stopped him, but he tried at every single attempt to be a fascist. So for instance, like he told, after we did, in the United States, we all kind of vote on who the president should be. Our parliament doesn't do it, our people do it, which is kind of weird, but in the United States, but after all of our people voted and the states were like ready to say like, this is who we voted on, like Donald Trump he called like one state saying like, hey, I need you guys to find more votes because the outcome is not acceptable. And then he told his vice president, the guy beneath him, he was like, listen, I need you to tell all the states that like their votes don't count and I need you to just make me president again. Like those types of breaking of norms, that is hardcore fascist behavior. Like, I don't care what that's fascist behavior. In my opinion, undermining, and this is where there's a little bit of crossover with like commies and socialists, undermining liberal values to me can be fairly fascist. So for instance, I think freedom of speech in the United States is a really big deal. Trump doesn't like it that much. When you start uttering phrases, which he said verbatim, the media is the enemy of the people, those are very fascist statements. I would say
that's true.
Essentially, so I think like the two big words for fascists that I usually see are authoritarian, ultranationalism. I think that if Trump wanted to be an authoritarian, I think he absolutely would be. He wanted to be single person rule of law. He wanted to do everything as the president. He didn't. He didn't like Congress. He had no regard for norms or process. And ultranationalist, everything. I mean, make America great again. It was all about the country, America.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, it's literally the phrase that was used. Like for example, make Britain great again by the fascist parties in Britain. Makes sense. But I think I'm quite comfortable with calling him like wannabe fascist, basically. So he would kind of.
I wish we could get away from the words because the words are so morally loaded. Because I think that if you just wouldn't call it fascist, I think most Republicans would be more honest about what they believe. Jesus.
There's also like this. Can you like tell me if like I'm right about that? I think like that there's like he isn't like exactly like traditionalist Trump, I wouldn't say.
Well, it's hard.
There's like
he's not really, but like he duped everybody somehow into thinking he was. But that's like a weird because like he talked about like because he's like. He like held up like the gay pride flag, but then he also tried to like kick trans people out of the military. He talked about like making it so women that have abortions should get like criminally prosecuted. But he also had like 3 wives and he cheats on his wife with porn stars. So I don't know. He's also supposed to be like the representation of the everyman. He's the guy that's going to fight against the system, but he's also a billionaire. So to some extent, he's just kind of like it's really just like a perfect showcase of like how stupid the average conservative is in the United States because they will accept the political positions even though those are contrary to every single aspect of Trump's life. But most Republicans will, if you ask them now, it's a lie, but most of them will cope and they'll tell you, oh no, well, we never supported any of like Trump's personal life. That was always bad, but we just like what he said. But they're all basically clapping along for a lot of things. They just pretend that now they weren't because it looks really bad.
Well, now that I think about it, I guess there's also one of the big, like, it's not like the biggest thing, but I think like obsession with the plot is very much like his whole thing, right? So there's like this media out to get him, like the left, like whatever, like the hack it would be. Like there's like
not
always
just the
like
left, but everybody, because a lot of the people, again, Trump was an exceptionally poor leader, and he was exceptionally anti-democratic in his leadership. So it wasn't just the left that was fucking him over; it was the right as well. Like so, for instance, like he blames a lot of lifelong politicians or lifelong bureaucrats in these administrations. Okay, sorry. But the problem is a lot of them were Republicans. Like Comey, for instance, in the FBI is somebody that Trump hated with a fiery fucking passion. But Comey was a lifelong Republican. I believe the same. I think, somebody can remember, I think Christopher Wray with the CIA, I think was the same. There are a lot of like lifelong Republicans that just so happen to be, I guess, far leftist deep state plants. When it came to Trump, that was what he would claim. But yeah. So
would you say he participated in suppression of opposition, or is it like or was it like hard to do in the United States just in general?
I think he wanted to, but he wasn't able to. No, they were just doing that in the United States. It's very, 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 very hard.
But there is this like I think I saw like several times like this again like quite big part of like fascism is disagreement is treason basically.
Yeah.
So this is like very prevalent in Russia. This is like one of the main things. So any like anything that criticizes like Putin or Kremlin and something like that is you will branded a traitor. You will be branded a foreign agent immediately. You know, and it's not like that obviously in the United States, and it's not like that with Trump case. But he does seem to be, and his followers as well. You know, they're like very obsessed with this like plot, with like conspiracism, with like everything is against him. Like it.
Taste just